All right. Hey, welcome back to yet another episode of Road Noise. Hey, we're back at it again. We are, I don't know, probably close to 60 episodes now in season six, which is, I don't know, Dad. Are we hit that 150, 200 mark yet? I don't know.
Yeah, we got to be close to it.
We're
And it's
getting
really kind of amazing. Season six followed season five.
right. Yep, yep. And
Yeah.
if you go all the way back, you can get all the way back to season one.
Which would be a good place to start if somebody has the interest. Yeah.
Yep, yep. Well, last week we chatted about Vacation Bible School. Where are we headed to this week?
Hey, after you put on lots and lots and lots of miles, things need fixed. And so on this one, we'll go back to puppet prospector days when we're running a bus. And like I said, when you're putting a lot of miles on, things need fixed. And we had noticed that the front left tire on the bus was wearing really bad on one side. And so we'd switched that tire around and put it someplace else and moved another tire in its place. And lo and behold, that tire started wearing just like the one we took off and rotated. And so we knew something was wrong. Didn't know what it was, but had somebody look at it and they knew what they were looking for. And this is while we're still on the road. And they said, Kingpin's bad. Kingpin? I didn't know we had a kingpin. But apparently, when the kingpin goes bad, the wheel doesn't stand straight up, it's at an angle. And so it's going to wear the tire on that side. Oh, and if you don't replace the kingpin, it will eventually get so bad that the whole front tire will come off, which I can imagine would end up being a bad day, especially if you're going down the road very fast. Well, anyway, so once the problem was identified, okay, so the kingpin, whatever this puppy is, um, we don't have time to do anything with it while we're on the road. And so at the end of the summer, we get back and I shared with some folks that we had a kingpin that needed to be replaced. And I'm just guessing that whatever this thing is, it's probably not going to be a cheap fix. Well, I just shared that with some folks. And it was a couple weeks later, I got a phone call. A phone call from a guy that I really didn't know. I might have met him prior to that, but I couldn't tell you if I did or didn't. But the phone call was from a guy by the name of Fred Bell. And in most of the podcasts that we've done, I haven't mentioned too many people's names. Oh yeah, you've heard Harold Weiss mentioned several times, but I haven't mentioned a lot of people's names because they might not appreciate it. And I haven't checked with Fred about sharing this story, but people need to hear it, whether Fred appreciates it or not. I tell you, this man is amazing. Like I said, this is many years ago, kind of my first introduction to Fred. He called and he says, Sheldon, I need to know when you're going to be home for a while so I can replace that kingpin on your bus. He said, a guy that I'm working for asked me if I would do that. He's going to buy the parts and he's going to pay me to do the work. But I need to know when you're going to be around long enough because, it might be down for a few days. And so he looked at the calendar and found a time and says, okay, we're going to be here for about a week, before we have to be back out on the road. And he said, great, I'll plan on being at your place at that time and I'll have the kingpin with me. Well, that day came and Fred showed up. So he's out there and he takes the tire off the front of the bus and also he can get to it. And Fred came back in my office and said, "Why don't you come out and take a look at this?" He said, "This is going to be a bigger job than what I had planned on." He says, "I can still do it." But he showed me the frame on the front of this bus. The frame was all rusted and so forth. He said, "This whole front end on this side needs to be rebuilt." He says, "We could put a new kingpin in there," but he says, "The frame is bent. It's leaning along with the kingpin." So he says, "Just replacing the kingpin is not going to solve the problem until we basically replace the frame." And I'm like, "So Fred, is that something you can do?" He's like, "Well, yeah, I can, but it's going to add to the time. Are you sure?" I'm saying, "Hey, look it, as bad as that thing is, I really don't want to have to take it back out on the road like that." And so he says, "All right." He says, "I'll order up some steel and probably be able to pick that up tomorrow." So he says, "If I'm not back here tomorrow with the steel, it'll be the next day." But he says, "I'll get some nice heavy steel and rebuild the front end." Class, this man ran a 220-volt power line from the office building, had to rewire things in the office building to take it out there so he could use his torch and his welder and everything. He cut the old frame out and then he starts cutting up pieces of heavy steel and welding it all back in there. This man worked and worked and worked until he had the entire frame of that bus rebuilt with brand spanking new heavy steel. And then he had something solid that he could start bolting the kingpin and all that apparatus to. And so Fred did all that, totally rebuilt the front end of that bus. Oh, wait, that was on the left side. He looked at the right side and, well, it had pretty much been through the same weather, the same snow, the same salt, and was rusted just about as bad. But he said, at least for now, he says, you're not going to have any problem going down the road. It's not like it's going to break and the wheel fall off. So he said, go ahead and drive it. But he says, next time you've got some time, he says, let me know and I'll come back and I'll rebuild the front right side as well. He did. Before we got rid of that bus, Fred had rebuilt the back left side, and there was only 1/4 of that frame that he had not replaced. And when we sold the bus, we mentioned that to the buyer that, hey, it's got 3 wheels are bolted to nice heavy steel, but one side, it's not real bad, but somewhere down the road is going to need some more attention. And that's the last we saw of that bus. But we put many years and many miles on it after Fred did that initial work. It was because of that work project that Fred was willing to take on. We got to know him extremely well. And it was probably within that year that we invited Fred to be on our board of directors, and he is still on today. And I tell you, this man has made more repairs on vehicles and equipment. I mean, he's kind of like Harold Weiss. There's nothing that he can't fix, and you just give him the time, and he's got the knowledge and the skills to make it work again. And it's because of Fred and people like him that we've been able to do what we've been doing for the past, what, we're coming up on 52 years here in another week or so. And it's because of guys like that God has blessed them. God has given them skills, given them knowledge and the tools to be able to rebuild the frame of a bus? Hey, if that's what it takes, God's got people that can do it. And so I'd just like to encourage you as you're watching or listening to this, maybe do a self examination. What is it that God has gifted you with? What tools do you possess? What knowledge? Is there some way that you can use that for kingdom work? Fred saw this as something that he could do to help us with our mission of reaching people with the gospel. And I'm guessing whatever the skill is that you've got, God can use that as well to help people be exposed to the gospel. And so the verse I'd like to share is in 1 Corinthians 12:28, where it talks about how God has given people different jobs. And he lists some of them, apostles and prophets, and some that can heal people, and people that can talk in different languages and so forth. God's got jobs, and he calls different people and equips them to do that job maybe better than most people. So, what is it God's gifted you with? I bet it can be used for the kingdom.
Yeah, I love that. What a great reminder of how we can use the gifts that we've been given to further the kingdom, regardless of the role. And just reflecting on that story and how those early memories were made with Fred. And Fred's an important man in my own life. Like
Mhm.
he has been around for as long as almost as long as I can remember, and
Yep.
just been a faithful servant of the Lord in whatever capacity he's been called into, and he's been a huge blessing to me as well. And yeah, it's just great to be able to just pause and just see how God uses all of our gifts in various ways, and just when we make ourselves available to make it happen.
Yeah. Well, I don't know how true any of this is, but we've got to end somewhere on this story. And so, what do you suppose Fred's favorite type of music is?
Hmm. I don't know.
Heavy metal?
Knowing Fred, I suspect not.
Yeah, I would suspect not either, but he sure put some heavy metal into that bus.
Yeah, it would be a good guess though.
Yeah. Well, what do you suppose Fred's favorite snack would be?
Hmm. I don't know.
Probably nuts and bolts.
No. Yep.
All right. Well, one more then. One more. What would Fred's favorite holiday be? You'd never guess.
Mhm.
Fixmas.
Fixmas. Yeah.
That's a new holiday. Thanks,
Yeah.
Fred, for all the work you've done.
Yeah. Thanks, Fred. Yeah. Well, let's park it here and we'll pick it up again next week.